Welcome. Enjoy watching.
Rode without her.
It showed up in the evening. No knock. No truck. No mailman. Just there. Sitting on the porch swing like it had been waiting for me all day. Plain envelope. No return address. No stamp, even. Just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Brad. Not babe, not husband, not trucker man. Just Brad. Like I was 23 again and hadn't screwed up yet. I almost threw it out. Almost. But I didn't. I opened it slow. Inside was one thing. A letter. My letter. The same damn one I wrote 13 years ago. On the back of a truck stop receipt. Ink smudged, edges yellowed. I didn't even know she kept it. Hell, I didn't even know I meant it when I wrote it. It read, "If I ever lose you, I don't want to find anyone else. I want to stay lost." And under that, a new line. Not mine. You didn't stay lost. You just rewrote the map. My stomach turned. It was her. Her. Not Jess. The one before. The one I promised forever to and left when forever got inconvenient. I didn't cheat. Not in the way people count. But I vanished. Disappeared into diesel fumes and a life that didn't make me look in mirrors. Now she was writing me again. Not asking for anything. Just reminding me that I was not the saint I pretended to be when I pointed fingers at Jess. And suddenly, I wasn't mad at her anymore. I was mad at me. I folded the letter twice. Then twice more. Slipped it into the bottom drawer of the old roll-top desk we never used, the one filled with expired coupons, tangled cords, and promises I never kept. Jess was marking tea. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and second chances. I watched her through the doorway, thinking about how I once told her she was my first real home. But she wasn't. And the worst part, she didn't even know that. I sat down at the table, tried to focus on the clink of spoons, the hum of the kettle, the way she tapped her foot without even knowing it. But that damn line haunted me. You didn't stay lost. You just rewrote the map. What did that make Jess? A pit stop? A detour? Or worse, the lie I told myself to survive the truth. Next day, I was back on the road. Short run. Just out to Dixon and back. Enough time to be alone with the noise in my head. I called Earl. Told him about the letter. He didn't say much. Just grunted and said, "You always were good at burying bones, Brad. But the ground ain't that deep." When I got home, the house was too quiet. And then I saw it. The desk drawer. Open. Letter on the table. And Jess. Sitting in my chair. Hands folded. Eyes calm. But not cold. "You wrote this?" she asked. No edge in her voice. Just stillness. I nodded, slow. "Long time ago. To someone else." "Yeah." Another pause. She didn't cry. Didn't storm. Just breathed. "Tell me," she said. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't angry. She was ready. Not to punish me, but to finally ask the question she'd been afraid to ask for years. "Who were you before you became mine?" I sat down slow, like honesty was gonna pull the chair out from under me. Jess didn't look at me like a wife. She looked at me like a stranger who'd decided not to walk away yet. And somehow, that was worse. So I told her. I met her when I was 22. Way before diesel and deadlines. I was fixing fences on her daddy's farm. She had this wild way of laughing, like every joke was too big to fit in her mouth. Jess didn't flinch. Just listened. I told her I'd never leave. Told her she made me feel like I had a real name, not just some noise people yelled when they wanted something. We'd sneak off after chores and drink peach soda under the water tower. "You loved her," Jess said. Not a question. A knowing. "Yeah," I admitted. In the kind of way that scared me. So what happened? I got offered my first haul. Long run to Amarillo. Said I'd be gone a week. Jess nodded slowly. And I never went back. That was the first time her face cracked. Not out of jealousy, out of recognition. She set the letter down. You ghosted someone you said you'd never leave. Yeah. And now you're mad at me for ghosts I didn't even invite in. That one sliced clean through. I looked down at my hands. I wasn't ready to be good to her. And I thought maybe, with you, I could undo that. Jess leaned forward, elbows on the table. So am I your second chance or your escape route? I blinked. I don't know. That silence between us, it wasn't angry. It was heavier than that. It was two people realizing they both fell in love with versions of each other that might have never really existed. Next morning, she made eggs. Overcooked them. Forgot the salt. Neither of us mentioned it. We just sat there, chewing on rubbery yellow guilt. She cleared her throat once. Twice. Then looked up. Let's go. I blinked. Go where? To her. Or to wherever you last saw her. I stared. Thought she was joking. You want me to go back to the place I walked away from 13 years ago? With you? She nodded. Yeah. I want to see the town that made you lie to me without even knowing it. My hands curled around the mug. Jess, this ain't a scavenger hunt. That place, those years, ain't got nothing left to give. That's exactly why we're going, she said. I shook my head. What if she's still there? Then you look her in the eye and find out if you meant what you wrote. And if not, you say it. Out loud. With me standing next to you. I was floored. You're okay with that? No, she said, real flat. But I'm tired of building our love story on top of yours with someone else. There was no drama in her voice. No challenge. Just a courage. And that scared me more than any yelling ever could. She stood, grabbed her keys, tossed me mine. You said you wanted to be honest, she said. Well, honesty don't stop at the front door. Sometimes you gotta pack it up and take it on the road. I looked at her, the woman I'd hurt and healed and hurt again. And I realized this wasn't about her. This was about me not hiding behind her anymore. We left just before noon. Jess packed snacks like we were heading to a fair instead of a reckoning. Trail mix. Bottled tea. Those peanut butter crackers she knows I hate but always brings just in case. I didn't speak for the first hour. Just gripped the wheel and stared at the highway like it owed me answers. Jess didn't push. She just sat there, feet up on the dash, window cracked, humming something low and sad. The road to Marlow wasn't long, but memory made it feel like 1,000 miles. Every exit sign was a scar. Every mile marker a line I'd crossed. I used to pick her up right there, I muttered, nodding toward an old busted gas station. We'd get slushies and watch trains go by like they were talking secrets with M. Jess didn't answer. Just looked out the window. Further down, we passed the gravel road that led to her daddy's land. The barn was still there, leaning like an old man, red paint faded to rust. I slowed down. Unconsciously. That's where I told her I'd marry her. Still no response. Finally, Jess spoke. You didn't bring her here. It wasn't a question. No, I said. I brought her everything else. And then, softer, I brought you here. We pulled into the town square. It hadn't changed much. One diner, one post office, a barbershop with a pole that still spun like time hadn't noticed. I parked the truck and turned off the engine. We sat in the silence. Then Jess said, "You ready?" I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. Because sometimes closure ain't a door slamming shut. Sometimes it's walking through the same door twice, just to prove it ain't home anymore. The bell above the diner door jingled like it remembered me. Everything inside smelled the same, bacon grease, old sugar, and small-town secrets. The counter was chipped in the exact same spots. The jukebox still leaned against the far wall like it had given up asking to be used. And behind it, at a corner booth, she Saturday. Hair shorter now. Skin softer, more tired. But it was her. Lacey. She didn't look up right away. Was stirring cream into her coffee like it held the past at the bottom. But the second I stepped in, her hand froze. Then dropped the spoon. Slowly, she turned. Our eyes met. And in that half second, 1,000 unfinished sentences passed between us. Bradley, she said. Her voice was warm asphalt after summer rain. Hey, Lace, I muttered. Jess stood beside me. Quiet. Strong. Not possessive. Just present. Lacey looked her up and down. No smile. No judgment. Just curiosity. This her. Jess stepped forward. Yeah. I'm the map. Lacey blinked. Then laughed. A real one. Not bitter. Not broken. Well, she said, motioning to the booth. Might as well sit. We did. No one spoke for a minute. Just breathing, 3 different kinds of breath. Then Lacey said, didn't think I'd ever see you again. I didn't think I deserved to, I replied. You didn't, she said, but not mean. Just honest. Jess leaned in, finally. He's been carrying this for years. Lacey turned to her. Oh no. I got the letter late. And then nothing. You disappeared. I ran, I said. I thought I was protecting you from the worst version of me. She looked me dead in the eye. Turns out disappearing is the worst version of you. I nodded. And for the first time in my life, I agreed. She didn't yell. Didn't slap me. Didn't even ask why I left. Lacey just sat there, sipping her coffee like she was waiting for me to catch up to a truth she'd made peace with years ago. You know what I thought when I got that letter, she said, finally. Jess stayed quiet beside me, hands wrapped tight around her cup. I thought, damn, he meant it. Every word. She looked at me. And then I thought, so what? I swallowed hard. I did mean it. I know, she nodded. That's what made it worse. Silence. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small, folded photo. Us. Me and her sitting on the hood of my old Chevy. Her legs crossed over mine, me grinning like I had the world by the throat. She slid it across the table. I kept this, she said. Not to remember you. But to remember me, who I was before you left. I stared at it. Younger me looked so sure. So solid. I didn't recognize that guy anymore. I'm not asking for anything, she added. No apologies. No closure. I made my peace. That's what's killing me, I said, voice cracking. Jess turned to look at me. You're not mad. You're not a hollowed out. You're just okay. And I don't know what to do with that. Lacey smiled soft. Then maybe you're not here for me. Maybe you're here to finally forgive the boy who couldn't stay. And just like that, the floor dropped out. Because she was right. It wasn't her that haunted me. It was me. The version of me that ran. And the version I still carried like a weight I refused to set down. We didn't talk for the first 30 miles. Just the hum of the road, wipers squeaking every few seconds like they were tapping out a slow apology. The picture Lacey gave me sat in the glove box, right on top. I couldn't bring myself to bury it under napkins or receipts. Jess watched the horizon, legs curled under her, hair pulled back. Her silence wasn't cold. It was working. Finally, she spoke. I didn't expect her to be a gentle. I nodded. Me neither. She loved you. Yeah. And you loved her. I glanced over. She didn't say it with jealousy. Just fact. I think I did, I said. But I loved her from the shallow end. The safe part. Where your feet still touch the bottom. Jess looked at me. And me. You? I dove in without checking for rocks. She smiled, small. That's the dumbest thing you've ever said. And the most honest. We drove another 10 miles in comfortable quiet. Then she turned toward me, voice barely above the hum of the engine. "I'm glad you went. Even if it cracked things open again. Especially because of that," she said. "You always looked at me like I was the only one who messed up. But now I see it in your face, you've been carrying your own mess a lot longer." I gripped the wheel tighter. I used to think if I loved you enough, it'd erase all the things I wasn't proud of. But that ain't love. That's erasing history. She laid her hand on my thigh, warm and steady. "I don't want a perfect man, Brad. I want one who knows what he's made of. Even the broken bits." I blinked hard. Because that's the kind of line you don't hear in real life. But sometimes, Jess says things that feel like prayers from someone who's already been to hell and came back with a roadmap. And for once I didn't feel like running. Rain started hitting harder, drumming on the windshield like the sky was trying to say what I couldn't. Visibility dropped to near nothing, and Jess was shivering, even with the heater on. I pulled into a rundown gas station, one of those old highway ghosts with flickering lights and a single busted pump that hadn't worked since Bush was president. Roof overhang gave us just enough cover. We didn't speak. Just Saturday. I leaned back, eyes closed, feeling the hum of the engine and the rhythm of her breath beside me. Then she said, quiet, "Can I ask you something strange?" "Shoot." "If you hadn't left Lacey, if she hadn't let you go so gently, do you think you'd ever have made room for me?" The question landed like a stone in a still pond. I didn't answer right away. Because damn it, I didn't know. Not back then. So I told the truth. I think I would have loved her the rest of my life if she'd stayed broken about it. Jess turned toward me, surprised. "You wanted her to hurt?" "No," I said. "But I needed someone to carry the guilt so I didn't have to." She let me off the hook, Jess. And that made me realize I was the one still holding the rope. She let that settle. Rain still pounding like applause for a speech we didn't give. Then she leaned over, reached into the glove box, and pulled out the photo. She looked at it for a long while. "She was part of your story," she whispered. "But she ain't the ending." I nodded, slow. "And you?" "I'm not the sequel," she said. "I'm the rewrite." We sat there in the hum of broken neon and a truck that never slept. And something shifted. Not like a door slamming. More like a lock finally clicking open from the inside. The water tower stood like a tired old god above the fields, rusted, chipped, still holding onto the name of a town too small for secrets. I didn't mean to stop. Didn't even plan to turn off the highway. But when I saw it, my hands moved before my brain caught up. Jess didn't ask why. She just followed. We stood at the base, boots sinking a little in the wet dirt, looking up like it could answer us. "This where you used to bring her?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Used to sit up there and talk about all the things we thought we'd never become." Jess smiled, sad. "And you became every one of them?" "Pretty much." She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out the photo. Then, without a word, she held it up and let it go. The rain caught it midair. It landed face down in the mud. "Why'd you do that?" she asked, stunned. She shrugged. "'Cause it was never mine to carry." I stared at that photo, half buried now, part of the earth. Then looked back up at the tower. "You know," I said, "she once carved our initials into that post." Jess walked over, ran her hand along the damp wood. "They are still there." She pointed. "Faint. But visible. B+L. "And you never carved us anywhere?" she asked. I shook my head. "Then do it now." I blinked. "What?" "Right here. Next to the past. Not over it." I pulled out my pocket knife. And for the first time in my whole damn life, I carved something not to hold onto the past, but to let it rest beside what came after. B+J. Jess leaned her head on my shoulder. No music. No big speech. Just rain, initials, and a muddy picture we didn't need anymore. Because maybe we weren't fixing the story. Maybe we were just telling it honest all the way through.